Sister to Queen Elizabeth II, Princess Margaret created two worlds for herself, where she struggled between royal duty and personal happiness. Welcome back to Hookups and Heartbreaks, as we examine Princess Margaret, dedicated sister, life of the party, and fashion icon who cracked the facade of the royal family, bringing it into the modern world. Born on August 21, 1930, Princess Margaret Rose was the younger daughter of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. Growing up alongside her older sister, Princess Elizabeth, the two sisters formed an unbreakable bond that would be tested by the demands of royalty and the pressures of tradition. The unexpected abdication of their uncle, King Edward VIII, thrust the young Elizabeth, then 10, into the line of succession, eventually leading to her father's ascension to the throne as King George VI. This momentous event not only changed the course of 6-year-old Princess Margaret's life, but also marked the beginning of her journey as a prominent figure in the royal family. Despite their differences in personality and temperament, Margaret and Elizabeth shared a deep and unbreakable bond that defined their relationship as sisters and as members of the royal family. Queen Elizabeth once famously remarked about their sisterhood, saying, "I have only one desire, and that is that we can be true and loyal friends throughout our lives." Elizabeth was very focused and serious as she undertook the education and training her position demanded. Margaret, however, was described as a very social and outgoing personality. She was not educated or trained like Elizabeth, as she was not expected to ascend to the throne. But just like her uncle David demonstrated, there is always a risk that the second-born, such as their father, could end up inheriting the throne. Margaret later admitted that she was hurt by this difference in their upbringing. When the king's health began to fail and ultimately saw his passing in 1952, the family experienced substantial change, with Elizabeth ascending the throne while their mother was thrown into mourning. Margaret found herself without a sisterly bond and no one to turn to. It was this loneliness that pushed Margaret to grow closer to Group Captain Peter Townsend, whom she first met in 1944 when Townsend was serving as equerry to her father. Unfortunately, Townsend was married at the time. Townsend obtained a divorce in 1952 with the intention of marrying Margaret. The church did not permit Margaret to marry a divorced man, and she sought the permission of her sister, the Queen. Elizabeth approved all royal marriages for those under the age of 25, and Margaret pleaded with her sister to approve the marriage. Elizabeth took it under consideration and asked that Margaret give it 2 years to see if their love sustained. The couple was separated by royal duties and a diplomatic posting in Brussels for Townsend. The physical distance between them, coupled with the disapproval of the royal family and the Church of England's stance against marriage to a divorced man, put their future together in jeopardy. Upon Townsend's return to the UK, the two reunited with the hopes of finally marrying. Margaret was then 25 and was able to marry without the Queen's permission. After some time, Margaret made the difficult decision not to marry, as it would have required her to renounce her royal title and place in the line of succession. Despite their deep love for each other, the couple chose duty over personal happiness, and Townsend later married someone else. Their love story remains a bittersweet chapter in Margaret's life, a tale of sacrifice and unfulfilled dreams in the face of royal obligations. Margaret's relationship with the English photographer Anthony Armstrong Jones began in 1958. Having met at a dinner party, they were immediately drawn to each other. Armstrong Jones was a rising star in the worlds of photography, fashion, and media, and the two of them found common ground in their artistic sensibilities. For some time, the two kept their relationship a secret due to Armstrong Jones's bad reputation amongst her circle of friends. Their whirlwind romance dominated the headlines, with Armstrong Jones proposing to the princess a year later with a custom-designed ruby and diamond engagement ring. They were married on May 6, 1960 at Westminster Abbey. The first televised royal wedding was an elaborate affair, and their union seemed to herald a new era for the royal family, with Armstrong Jones, who was soon to be made Lord Snowdon, injecting new energy and glamour into an increasingly stodgy institution. On their honeymoon, the couple stopped at the Caribbean island Mustique. Margaret's friend, Colin Tennant, had just purchased the island, and Margaret was enchanted by the freedom from the confines of the monarchy. Tennant offered Margaret the option of a piece of land on the island as a wedding gift, and she quickly took him up on it. The marriage between Margaret and Lord Snowdon began declining in the 1960s, seeing both having extramarital affairs. Their personalities were drastically different, which often led to public arguments, confrontations, and spending time in separate pursuits. They lived the party lifestyle and were known to start the day with chain smoking and vodka. It was rumored that Snowdon was abusive towards Margaret, and he became bored with royal life, and his treatment of her reflected that. At one point, Margaret was treated for a nervous breakdown and depression. Despite that, the couple had 2 children, David Armstrong Jones and Lady Sarah Chatto. The 1970s were difficult years for Margaret. During this time, Margaret started to make regular trips to Mustique and built a house there. Mustique became her go-to home where she could relax and be herself out of the spotlight. Unable to ignore her royal obligations, she would return to the UK for long periods to attend to royal duties in support of her sister. She spent many years dividing time between the 2 locations. Eventually, the press infiltrated her island getaway and stalked her, landing her on the front pages in a bathing suit. The press eventually revealed that Margaret was having an affair with Roderick Lewin, a landscape gardener. The damage to the royal family's reputation had been done. By this time, it was well known that Snowdon had been having numerous affairs with both men and women, and the couple was headed for a breakup. She and Snowdon separated after 18 years of marriage. Their divorce was finalized 2 years later, making Princess Margaret the first royal to get divorced in 400 years. With her newfound sense of freedom and independence, Margaret was able to reinvent her life. It was the 1970s, and a hedonistic lifestyle was just an extension of how she lived through the 1960s, with lavish parties and rumors of numerous affairs. Surrounded by close friends, celebrities, and the island's permanent residents, she immersed herself in island life, hosting celebrity parties at her villa for guests like Mick Jagger. Sadly, Margaret's lifestyle began to catch up with her when her health began to fail. She was a known heavy smoker most of her life, smoking up to 60 cigarettes a day and drinking heavily. Initially, she struggled with smoking-related health problems, which were exacerbated by her glamorous lifestyle and love for parties. She underwent multiple surgeries, including a partial lung removal in 1985, and further procedures to address her deteriorating physical condition. Beginning in 1998, she suffered a series of strokes that left her with limited mobility and speech difficulties. This event marked a turning point in her life, as she required ongoing treatment and care to manage the effects of the stroke. Margaret suffered a 4th stroke and subsequently passed away on February 9, 2002, at the age of 71. Her death marked the end of an era and left a void in the royal family and the hearts of those who admired her grace, wit, and indomitable spirit. Her funeral was held on the 50th anniversary of her father's funeral. Thank you for joining us for this sad tale of royal obligations and the struggle for happiness. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more hookups and heartbreaks. Until then, take care and stay tuned for more exclusive content. Goodbye!